Good evening to all who have joined us this evening. I hope that all of you are safe and sound despite the atmospherics last night. Media has fared fairly well as it comes to Tropical Storm Ida, but it was quite a sight. The town did not shut down entirely, and I expect that the mayor will say a few words about the events of yesterday. But I'm glad that everyone who has joined us is safe and healthy. We have, as always, an opportunity for public comment, and if you are not with us physically tonight, you may send your comments to our email address, which is comments@mediaborough.com. That is comments@mediaborough.com. And if you send us a question or a comment, that will be read to us this evening. Before we begin with formal public comment and privilege of the floor, a reminder to all, if you have not received your vaccination yet, please make a schedule an appointment and get that vaccination done. If you know somebody who has not got their vaccination yet, please encourage them to do so. We thought that we were nearing the end of the tunnel a few months back. It appears that that was not so. And we are again, that the numbers again are trending in the wrong direction. And it is worrisome for many. I think that you'll hear tonight that some of the events that were planned for this fall have been canceled by the organizers because of the worrisome trend in the numbers. So let us begin with public comment and privilege of the floor. Karen, do we have any questions or comments by way of email?
We do not.
And although I do not know that we are still receiving or welcoming comments by way of voice message, have we received any by voice message?
No, we haven't.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody here tonight who wishes to address council at this time? If there is, please come to the microphone, tell us your name, where you live, and what's on your mind.
I don't have public comment to address business, but Terry's tied up with something at home, but he was trying to watch it on TV, and he's texting me saying he's not getting it on the YouTube.
It's not on YouTube.
What?
It's
We're
not.
having difficulty streaming, so it's not going to be on YouTube today until tomorrow morning.
It's on Comcast
But
and
you can look at
Verizon.
Comcast or Verizon, channel 5 or 42.
Got it. Okay, thanks for clarifying.
So for the record, it was a comment from one of our residents, Robin Lasserson, who lives on West 4th Street, and she was relaying to us a concern from another resident who was not able to see the live stream of our meeting on YouTube. As Karen Rapino has explained, there is no live stream on YouTube of this meeting. There will be it will be available on YouTube tomorrow on the Borough YouTube channel. Did I get that right?
It is live on Comcast and Verizon, correct, right now.
And as Dave Chacon has reminded us, it is live on Comcast and where else, Dave?
Verizon.
And Verizon. So you can join us there as well. All right, well, I'll take that to mean that there's no one here present who wishes to make public comment or make a use of privilege of the floor. So we'll move along then to the Borough Manager's report. Ms. Foreman.
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of announcements I did want to share with you, as you probably have seen on social media, about a number of events that have been canceled from the organizers. The 5-mile race is going to be virtual this year, and that means that the racers can pick up their bibs on Friday, September 10th, and on Sunday, September 12th. They do their 5 miles wherever they choose, and they report their results to the organizers by the end of September 30th. And so please go to their website at media5milerace.com for more information. Also, I wanted to share about Town Talk. They just, I believe, put out an announcement yesterday that they canceled their Super Sunday, which is supposed to be held on September 19th, as well as the Arts and Crafts event on October 3rd. Again, they're concerned about COVID and the fact that those particular events bring 8,000 to 10,000 people to State Street where they're shoulder to shoulder. So as of now, the Halloween parade that they organize is still on, And they're going to make the decision probably a couple weeks before the Halloween parade, and they'll keep us informed. And that's it for the events. I also wanted to share that we just got notification that we did not get the WalkWorks grant that we applied for. It was around $6,000. We applied for to do a mini traffic calming plan on 3rd Street to address some of the bicycling and pedestrian and car related issues. So just wanted to report that out, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Foreman. Does any member of council have any questions for Ms. Foreman at this time? Just to emphasize a point that Ms. Foreman was making, for us to get to that light at the end of the tunnel, please mask up, get vaccinated. That is the surest way that we'll be able to beat this pandemic.
And if people had, we could be having our 5-mile race, we could be having our Super Sunday, and we could be having, hopefully it doesn't get canceled, our Halloween parade. So think of others.
We'll move along then to the engineer's report, Mr. Mattson.
Thank you, Mr. President. A number of items to report. Again, with last night's rain, I was able to get around to take a look at a few sites that had been concerned. I was very happy to report that the 5th and Broomall development, which had been the subject of some major flooding, and again, the whole town was major flooding, but was a special concern last year in July and August. So we put in an additional stormwater measure, and I'm happy to report that we didn't even need that particular stormwater measure for last night's rain event. So the original planned stormwater facilities that were designed held their own. So we still have additional backup in the event that there is a concern at that site. I was very happy to report that.
Redundancy is good in your world.
Agreed, especially since the unpredictability with what I believe is climate change and storms that we have never seen anything like this before. So having additional room in those facilities is good news. The Public Works Garage is substantially complete. We did have the award of the 2021 road program last month. So we are coordinating with PennDOT to make sure they get all the paperwork that they need to give us the green light to move forward with the pre-construction meeting with the contractor Cipollone. I did speak to Cipollone this morning, and again, they're eager to move forward with the road program. We also did get a clearance from PennDOT to move forward with the APS project. So our pre-construction meeting will be scheduled for next Wednesday for that project. I heard that later this afternoon. So I was happy to report that one. We have a pre-construction meeting for our properties and buildings contract that we awarded, I think it was last month as well. That's scheduled for next Friday. And then at the end of this month, or prior to the end of the month, a report will be due to the DEP. This report has to do with the year-long events and reports that we have prepared for our stormwater. It's for our MS4 report. So there are 6 different areas that we report on, including public education, public outreach, the testing of facilities, the coordination with contractors, and then our own internal good housekeeping practices, which is how we are stewards of keeping our own facilities clean and in check with compliance with the DEP. So that will be due at the end of the month. So unless there are any other questions, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mattson. Any council member have any questions or comments for Mr.
I'd
Mattson?
just like to make a comment that I don't know how many people really caught this. Our engineer was out last night, walking the town. You don't find that with very many engineers. And because of his commitment to the community, he's able to see things that no one else would be able to see. So, you know, what you caught last night, you must have looked like a drowned rat by the end of the night. I applaud you, because I don't know many engineers that would have gone out last night. But I will say, because you did, you're able to determine good things, Broomall's Park, and later on tonight, we'll talk about some of the things that weren't so fantastic.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you.
I appreciate your work, your effort, and your time, and your commitment to this borough.
The shoes I was wearing did not survive. I tried to put them in the dryer for an hour, and they still were smelly, so that was a loss, so that's not all great news.
Hip waders.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other comments, questions, or accolades for our engineer? We'll move along then to the solicitor's report. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. The only thing I want to let you know is I will be providing you with a proposed 5G ordinance, if you'll recall, I reported a couple of months ago, there's a new state legislation that kind of limits your zoning capacity, but allows you to impose a fee for 5G antenna, and sets some criteria that they have to comply with. So I'm going to prepare an ordinance that complies with that statute, requires that providers apply, demonstrate that they comply, and pay the fee, and it needs to be adopted by the October legislative meeting under the statute. So that will be, I'll have that in front of you for the legislative meeting this month for adoption in October.
Anything else, Mr. Scott?
No, thank you.
Bob, with that new ordinance, do we have the ability to, for lack of better words, negotiate? I mean, or so literally they could come in and say, I want to put it right here, and we don't have a choice of, can you move it a half a block or 100 yards?
In the right of way, we do not. So which is, the street front. It does not limit your ability to legislate for everywhere else. So, they can't say we're going to put it in, like, for example, on the middle of the courthouse property. It's the right of way, which is the street frontage. They can put antenna that cannot exceed a certain height, and we do not have the ability to stop that. If what they submit is in the right of way, complies with the height limit, then we stop.
So to simplify for the residents, with this legislation, they will be able to come in and say, well, I want to put a pole right here in front of somebody's front lawn.
It could.
And
That's
we don't
not
have any ability to work with.
That is correct.
Wow.
That is not a big risk in a build-out town like Media with above-ground utilities. It's much with above-ground utilities. It's a bigger threat in your newer developments that have underground utilities, where there are no poles. So I have experience in other municipalities where the cell providers come in, and they're not looking to put up new poles. They want to put them on existing infrastructure. It's easier and cheaper for them. So I don't see that as it is absolutely a possibility, but it's not a huge risk, I believe, in a built-out community with above-ground utilities.
Do you have any idea the size of the unit itself? I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be.
Yeah, I should recall off the top of my head, but I think it's 15 feet. Can't exceed 15 feet.
15 feet.
And the antenna, the thing they put on top of the,
Okay,
yes.
but it's more like an antenna, not
It's not a tower.
like a box or two.
This is not towers, it's infill, smaller things in the right of
But
way.
15 feet, it's not going to be this way, it's going to be this height.
Correct, height, not wide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Scott? Looks as if we all have a little bit of light reading ahead of us come the end of this month. So we'll look forward to reading that. We'll move along then to Bob McMahon, the Borough Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. That's the best introduction I've gotten in years. Let's see, I'll start with yesterday's event. Yesterday we had a marker celebration, meaning an historical event happened 50 years ago in Media, where there was a break-in in the FBI office on Veterans Square, and there were 8 burglars that went in, and for more than 40 years nobody knew who they were. And 4 of them showed up yesterday for the presentation. And the presentation, there have been 2,500 markers for special events throughout Pennsylvania, and this is our second one that we have. So we now have 2 markers in town. And good, I'm open to questions.
Say that again.
Markers, a marker.
Yeah, I know what, say it again.
There were 2,500 statewide, and this is our second.
Thank you.
Okay. I said 4 of the 8 showed up. Families of them came. And it was a nice event, except it rained pretty hard. Kept Paul Robinson being late to get there. But anyway, so it was a nice event, I think. Let's see. Dining on the Stars was canceled again yesterday. We're hoping to do makeup. We've had a lot of cancellations. So right now, we're signed up till the end of September, so we'll probably be, not we, I'm not part of we, but probably there'll be an ask to go into October, because we had more than usual this year for several reasons. So hopefully that'll happen. Economic development. The theater is going to open with Mamma Mia in about 2 months. It's going to be a very popular show. Hopefully, we're all able to go, depending on the circumstance with COVID. But we're making deals, making deals with restaurants that we haven't done before. Iron Hill's coming up with a creative way of getting people to come to the restaurant and also go to the theater. And we're going to be working with, I guess, somewhere between 15 and 18 restaurants to participate in this. So we draw people, and they don't just do one-time thing. I think over the years, we feel that when there's a show in media, that 42% of the people that come either dine before or after the show. That's matinees and evening shows. So we're trying to get everybody in the habit of doing two things when they come. Okay? Sarah? Oh, thank you. Sarah's very helpful. That completes my report.
Thank you, Mayor McMahon. Does any member of council have any questions or comments for the mayor at this time? I'll just offer this. I was particularly impressed by the attendance at the film last night, despite the film being shown at what felt like the height of the storm. Enough of folks braved the elements that I'd say the theater was about 3/4 full. Was that about?
I think they have between 150 and 200. Theater seats 400, and I think there were over 100 at the event. Paul, you were in the back there.
When I was there was at least 50 plus,
Okay.
counting the umbrellas.
Yeah, there are people too.
So when you think about this in the context of a 100-year storm or a 300-year storm, I don't know what term is proper, it was pretty impressive. And I think it says a lot about the level of activism in the media community and the care that many have, that we all have, for our community and its place in history. If you have a chance to see the movie, you should take that chance. I know it's been on Netflix before. I'm not sure if it's still being offered on Netflix, but it will pop up every now and then. Take a look at the film, and I think that you'll be very impressed. Let's move along then to the council committee reports, and we will start with Paul Robinson, Properties, Public Works, and Fire. Paul?
And good evening. Public Works, the engineer pretty much, our highway garage is done, getting ready to be used. We are still looking at the possibility of fire suppression or sprinkler system in there. I don't think that has been completed, but that is in the process of being looked at. With regards to fire, met with several members, executive members of the department last week. They are working to put together the proposal with regards to full-time, daytime firefighters. One other area in which they brought up, which I think is a good idea, it's amazing that we hadn't thought of it before, is the same way that we have EAC, and we'll ask members of our community that are knowledgeable and active with regards to environmental activities, that we may want to look into some sort of a, quote, fire commission in which we could get individuals not, that are educated with regards to fire needs and things of that nature. One of the individuals that was brought up, I won't bring names, but he was one of the top 3 fire chiefs in the city of Philadelphia, has retired, and of course, where did he move to? So that was an idea that the fire company had, and I think it would be good. It would help us if we had educated individuals that could assist us the same way as educated individuals on EAC assist us in making decisions. This is something I ask that we think about and possibly look into and adopt for 2022 and moving forward. So that's it. Number 2 on my agenda is, I believe we all have a memorandum from our engineer with regards to North Olive Street. This has been an issue that has been going on, and we have, in the process of working on the big picture of stormwater management at North Olive Street. Some of it would be green storm litter, some would be gray storm litter. This situation now has become what I'm going to say close to an emergency. The residents have been very, very pleasant working with us. As I politely joked with Kevin today, if it was my front lawn that had a giant hole in it, and I had to have caution tape and milk containers around it to make sure my friends and children don't fall into it, I wouldn't be as nice as they've been. It is something that Kevin looked at last night, has already spoken to some contractors and has some ideas. On our agenda tonight, it references a request for $25,000. I'm asking that we double that to $50,000. The 25 would just do 2 inlets. Speaking to our engineer today, he did say that 2 could work, where 3 or more would work. So this is one of these areas that I think we need to work on now, and I would ask that we find funds, either cut back on maybe a more frivolous capital project and put it into, making sure that these residents have a safe front lawn. And I would ask that we move forward and ratify this at our legislative meeting. Let our engineer and our solicitor determine the best way to take action on this as promptly as possible. So I don't know if it was in a form of I can't do a motion, but I would ask that we allow this.
Get a sense of council tonight. Let me ask this, Brittany, in our budget, I know our budget, we usually have a contingency fund of $60,000. I don't recall whether or not we have a contingency fund in this year's budget, and if so, what that amount is.
We do have a contingency fund, and I'm blanking on the amounts, but I want to say it's, if not 60, the 67?
I believe it is 60.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. So,
And we've already, we've used, we have pulled from it for,
Yes.
so, but I would say there's probably at least 50 left. I don't have the latest, but I can get that information for you all. But if I may, well,
yes, I think that at the risk of asking for a preview of Mr. Williamson's agenda, I think that there was some good news about the MMO. Or was that going to be your comment? I apologize.
that was not going to be a very comment. No, I was going to just talk about the capital budget in general, because we've only spent around 900,000 of the capital budget, and so and there have been projects, and I think our engineers mentioned it before, that during a workshop, that there have been projects that have come in significantly less than what we thought it was going to come in, like our public works garage, and a number of projects. And so we have and can find the funds in our capital budget for stormwater, absolutely.
Good.
And just one other thing, there are like 3 other line items for stormwater issues in our capital budget.
Correct.
Some of them are moving slower than what we thought that they were going to move for various reasons. So there is absolutely funds available.
Okay. Mr. Manson, would you care to weigh in on what your assessment of the importance of moving forward with this project now?
Certainly, Mr. President. Again, this area of town has seen in the last few years 3 major sinkholes. The reason for that is that there are a network of pipes under the ground that were probably put there in the 50s and 60s that are just really old and really either in need of repair, replacement, or abandonment. But the plan that I'm putting forward tonight abandons those old pipes and installs brand new pipes where they belong, which is under the physical cartway. The old pipes that are creating sinkholes are on people's private property. And, we could go back in time and figure out how did they get there in the first place. But you would not design this like this today. You simply would not. You would put the pipes and the inlets in the street and then channel it through a separate easement through probably a common property line. But right now, there's a network of pipes running around out there that I would like to abandon them. So I would like to cap the one, fill it with concrete. The sinkhole will never come back after that. It will simply be, it will not come back. So this has been, we have a sinkhole under the cartway On Olive Street back in 2016, if you recall correctly, we took down a tree because the tree started doing this, and I said, let's take the tree down too. There was a sinkhole that opened on the Smith property at 810. This current sinkhole is at 812. Again, the proposal is to simply get rid of that entire system. These residents, at least, will never be affected by the sinkholes. The overall plan is to reduce stormwater from the entire catchment area. So the entire neighborhood, unfortunately, these houses sit at the low point of a catchment area that's about 45 acres. And there's a long-term plan to reduce flow from getting to them in the first place. But in the short term, we need to channel water to where it wants to go, which is back towards the creek. And right now, it's being channeled under their property. So I can't emphasize enough the urgency, because we could have just patched this a couple weeks ago, and what will happen is the sinkholes will come back because the pipes are still there, and they're not in good shape. They're all vitrified clay and corrugated metal. They're about 8 feet deep, and they're in need of some care.
All right, thank you. So what I heard is that you're emphasizing that this is a very urgently needed project.
So I would hope that we could
Are
get a
there any
thumbs up.
questions or comments? And seeing that there are none, let's get a sense of council. All those who favor the expenditure of up to $50,000 for purposes of the stormwater repairs as outlined by Paul Robinson. Just to get a sense of whether or not you're supportive.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is support of everyone present tonight, and which would constitute a majority of council. We'll take a vote on this 2 weeks from tonight, but what this allows us to do is start moving forward with the project now, and we'll ratify our decision in a couple of weeks' time, noting the importance of moving forward with this as quickly as possible. And boy, if last night's events didn't fill us with a sense of urgency about the importance of stormwater management, I don't know what will.
And at the next Public Works meeting, Kevin is going to sit down with us, and we're going to start to dive significantly deeper into the issues of where the water is coming from. A lot of it, shall I say, is not necessarily media borough water, and that does need to be addressed. But the most important thing is to take care of our residents so that they have a front lawn that they can have, and then we can look into the more larger storm area issue with public works, and then come back with some of our recommendations. I will say that some of the green stormwater may have to be pulled back because it may not be strong enough to handle some of these rains. I mean, they're designed to absorb things and things of that nature, but when you're getting 3 feet of water running down the street, at 25 miles an hour, some of these green concepts literally would be taken right down the street with it. So these are things we need to take a look at, and I hope, we've been working on them, as Brittany said, but I think we need to bounce them up on the priority level significantly, because it's just getting worse every single time it has a storm. So that's number 2. Number 3 is actually good news, and Peter was really mainly part of it, and Sarah was with regards to the 5th and Broomall Street Park. And because it's a part of the borough property, it came onto my report that the idea of naming the park Heritage Park. I think it's a fabulous idea. I guess I will bring it up for a vote on the legislative meeting. And then also, where Archives had some ideas, where I think it's a super fantastic idea, is to look at some of the history of that section of town and memorialize that. You all know I have not necessarily been a big fan of the 5th and Broomall Street Park, but if we start to look at it this way, where it's literally an educational area, where residents that didn't grow up here, haven't lived here that long, can come and read about individuals, neighborhoods, what it was like, I think it would be fantastic. So it would actually take it from just a completely passive park to an area in which you could go and get educated on what media was like 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. So I think it's a fantastic idea. So legislative meeting, I'll make the motion to formally adopt the name, and then move forward with Archives with regards to historical significance of the neighborhood. Concludes my report.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody in council have any questions or comments for Paul? Seeing that we have none, we'll move along to Lisa Johnson, MBA Historic, Public Safety, and Civil Service. Lisa?
I have nothing to report.
All right. Does any member of council have any questions for Lisa tonight? Seeing that we have none, we'll move along to Amy Johnson. Amy, we have Fair Trade Farmers Market, Shade Tree, and Environmental Advisory Council.
I too have nothing to report, but I do have a question for you, Brittany. I'm just curious, do you know about how many buckets, compost buckets, we have given out to residents at this point?
I don't.
Okay. I was just
Is it in the range of a lot?
But she doesn't have a
Mike was
bucket
saying it was about 10 a week that we were getting, and that was at the hall, but then there was also what's happening
At the market.
at the farmer's market,
Yeah.
so I can ask him, I haven't asked him in
Yeah.
over a few weeks now.
So Dave is signaling to us 50, 50.
I think it's more than, I think it may be more than that.
Yeah.
Okay, in excess of 50 is what he meant.
10 since Monday, because there was 10 there Monday morning, and there's no, not
Okay.
Yeah, that,
Okay. All right, I'm just curious. Thanks. That's it? I don't have
Oh.
anything specific.
Any questions from council for Amy Johnson? All right, we'll move along to my portion of the agenda, Community Development and Historic Architecture Review Board. Item number 1 just reads announcements, and there is something of an announcement. For quite some time, we have been, I know that there have been a fair amount of discussion around town about what might become of the property on which the county parking garage used to sit. If I remember a couple of years ago, it fell down, or part of it fell down, and as a result, the county decided the better course of action was to completely dismantle it, leaving essentially 2 lots that are bisected by a street. We have worked with the county and encouraged them to come forward with some ideas for a plan for those properties. We don't quite know what those plans are going to be, but we understand that they might come to the Community Development Committee meeting at the end of this month, which I believe is the 28th. Do I have that right, Brittany?
Let me pull the calendar and look.
maybe the 25th.
That week.
Well, I should be completely
Oh,
honest.
let's see if we get there fast. It is the 28th.
All right. I had a 1 in 7 shot at it, and percentages were with me. So on the 28th at 4 p.m. in the large conference room at Borough Hall, there might be a presentation by the county as to their thoughts about those lots and what they might become. Again, we don't know that they will be coming on that day. We understand that that is their plan, but that plan might change. If you are interested, then please take a look at the Borough website. Typically about a week before or the weekend before. By the weekend before, we'll have a proposed agenda up, and that should give you a pretty fair idea as to whether or not that is going to be a topic of conversation at that meeting. And of course, the public is welcome to that meeting. Items number 2 and 3 are bound together by a common element, which is I have really nothing to report about them because typically I report about advice or actions taken by the Planning Commission. This month, September of 2021, is one of those atypical months where council is meeting a workshop before the Planning Commission meets. So I do not have the advantage of reporting to my colleagues what the Planning Commission's thoughts were about these applications because the Planning Commission hasn't had a chance to consider them. There are 2 items, one of which we're very familiar with because it's come before us a number of times. It is the development at 100 North Providence Road. This comes as final subdivision and land development because this property sits within an historic district. It came before us for purposes of a certificate of appropriateness, and then it came before us again for purposes of approval of a preliminary plan. So this will be the 3rd time that we're seeing it. I've seen the plans. It seems to be very consistent with what we've seen before, but we'll see what the planners have to say. Depending upon what the planners have to say, I might be in position to make a motion 2 weeks from tonight But again, that depends on what the planners have to say. The second item is something that we have not seen before us. It is a lot line adjustment. This involves two properties, one located at 620 Painter Street and the other located at 610 Painter Street. As those two addresses might suggest, that they are neighboring lots. There's a common owner. The owner would like to adjust the lot line between 610 and 620 so that it is a straight line from the bottom of the lot to the top of the lot. This will get rid of a sort of jog in 620, which it will result in two compliant lots. And so our role here is very limited. So long as they are compliant with the lot lines that are, so long as the lot lines that are created, the new lot lines are compliant with our code, then they, as a matter of right, they can adjust those lines. But we don't yet have that in front of us tonight. We'll see what the planners have to say. I understand that the reason for the lot line adjustment is to allow two buildings on one property, one building on one property to swap over to the other, so that the larger of the two properties, 610, could be used as I think it's a mini storage facility. I think that's what it is. But again, our role is very limited. So long as they comply with the ordinance, they are entitled to what they are requesting. Both of those items will be before the Planning Commission this coming Tuesday at 7:30 in this room. So if you are interested in either of those two or both, come join us and speak up if you wish to. Otherwise, I don't have anything to report this evening. Does anybody have any questions for me? Paul?
The county property.
Yes.
Have we had any discussions with the county on what we would want? Because I bring that up for the fact that in talking to several businesses on State Street, one of the issues that has occurred is that many of the owners of these establishments and their employees have gotten permanent parking. And permanent parking historically was north of State Street, so heading up towards the courthouse. So with that occurring, now there's people from the courthouse filling up those parking spaces. So two of the business owners I spoke to were saying, I own a permit, I can't find a place where I can park where I'm allowed to use my permit, so now I have a permit and I'm stuck going to the southern side of State Street and having to put meters in, or fill meters with money.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I can't say that it's 100%, but the individuals have all said this has only occurred since we lost, or the county lost, what, 400, 300 parking spaces. So I welcome the opportunity for the county, but I think we also have a responsibility to push back to say, you know, if you're a business, you had X parking and now you don't. So what are you going to do about that? And I think that's the most important part of our discussion.
And also just suggesting some possibilities to them. Not necessarily pushing, not starting a war, but saying, hey, look, we need to do something.
Right.
And here's some of the suggestions we have. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So they're both excellent suggestions. We are mindful that it is not our property. It is owned by the county, and the county has a certain say as to how this is going to be developed. I do know that there have been members of council who have spoken with peers on at the county level and expressed concern about off-hour use of those lots and whether or not the lot, if there is a lot, would be made available to folks to use.
Historically, they didn't let us use their lots.
Right.
Anyway, so, you know, that you know,
It is a topic. I think it's a topic of
concern is, you know,
discussion.
loss of revenue for us. You know, if there's not office buildings there, then there's employees that aren't in those office buildings, and X percentage of those employees were paying their own income tax. So I think that's another area that, you know, we need to address. So it's not just the little parking lot or pocket park or something like that. I mean, I think we need to look at what we're going to be losing with regards to parking and revenue. with regards to 100 North Providence, I don't know if there's anything that we can do. I've seen renderings on real estate websites, and I would really hope that we could encourage the builder to try to develop a little bit greater flavor with regards to the Lewis house and the surrounding new houses, and try to have them blend in a little bit more to be more of a look of a community versus the Lewis house, and then, for lack of better words, 6 Toll Brother houses. If you could at least bring that up and encourage, I know it's the final, or maybe we could talk to them now. It just, the renderings aren't distasteful, but I think with a little bit of extra effort, they can make them fit into the house or the surroundings, which is the Lewis property. So thank you.
Again, an excellent point. This is the, for those of you who don't know the addresses in the borough, I like the back of their hand, 100 North Providence Road is where the Lewis farmhouse is. Across the street from the Quaker Meeting House, across Providence Road from Quaker, beyond it backs out into the Mitchell House. As I recall, Mr. Scott, when we approved the preliminary, one of the conditions, I hear what you're saying, Paul, but I looked at what exists online was very different from what we were showed here during the preliminary land development process. And I recall, Mr. Scott, we had the applicant attach images of the houses, and those did incorporate materials, colors, etc., that were reflective of the Lewis farmhouse. Certainly far better than what we see.
Okay, like I said, the only thing I've seen is online. So yeah, if you think they look fine, I just was a little bit concerned about that. But if you've seen better and you're comfortable, I will without a doubt defer to you.
So another example of why it is that we shouldn't believe everything that we see online.
Well put.
All right, any other comments or questions? We'll move along then to the Recreation and Board of Health. Mr. Kevin Boyer is not here tonight. He does not have any action items to discuss. So, Brittany, unless you have anything that you would like to add to that you believe is appropriate for his portion of the agenda?
He did ask me to share about the recent meeting that we had with the health department. So the health department, as you all know, is in the process of being built, and they're supposed to be open by January 2022. And so they're having meetings with each municipality to talk about what that means. And basically, what's the most important thing for us is that the county is taking over health inspections. That includes food, pools, schools, daycares, institutions, nursing homes, etc. And for media, the big thing there is the food, right? The restaurants inspections. So that will be being taken care of by an inspector from the county, no longer our public health officer, which is Lori Devlin. What we learned is that they weren't taking on the other aspects of the health officer's job. So, she also reacts to nuisance complaints, hoarding, rats, bed bugs, chickens, those sorts of things. They will not be taking those items on. And so they will not. Okay. They're only health, food, pools, schools, daycares, institutions, nursing homes in regard to their commercial kitchens. And so in our meeting, we also had, the MBA there. So we're really working with the county and the MBA to determine kind of that smooth transition, because for our business community, most of them just renewed their health licenses in August. That license will be good for the entire year, but come the next year's renewal, the county will be doing that inspection. So we're just trying to work through that to make it a smooth handoff, and we will bring additional updates to you all.
And we will still have the need of our own health department for non-restaurant type items.
As of now, I believe that we're still going to need those sorts of things that Lori does, the health officer does.
Do we have any authority, Bob? I knew that we had authority because we had a county without one. Once they have one, will we have a health?
You do not have to have Board of Health, but you can have.
Okay.
Most municipalities don't anymore. They're kind of a remnant of, most places don't use them anymore.
Okay.
But you can. You can also have someone who deals with rats, bed bugs. That could be a code officer, or it could be someone you call a health officer.
Okay. So there is a possibility that in January, when there's a reorganization, that we no longer have or need or want a health department.
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, but certainly, you're not obligated to have a board of health. You know, unlike some other bodies that you have to have, like civil service commission and whatnot.
Thank you.
All right then, we'll move along to Finance and Library. Peter Williamson is not with us tonight. He has asked that our manager, Brittany Foreman, deliver, at least discuss one of the agenda items. Brittany?
Yes, this is for the fiscal year 2022 MMO calculation. We received that calculation from our actuary, Malcolm House. As you know, MMO stands for minimum municipal obligation, so it's the state mandated smallest amount that we as a municipality must contribute to the pension plan. And so for next year, FY 2022, the police pension obligation will be $755,000. And the non-uniform pension obligation will be $92,000 for a total obligation of $847,000. And that is substantially less than this year's MMO, which was around $1 million.
Is that due to the fact that we've had 3 retirees?
It's all that stock market return. Every place is doing well this year. Does higher stock market returns, I think.
Okay, so it's really, okay.
Yay, Wall Street. Any other comments or questions concerning this item, Mr. Williamson's report? All right, then we'll move along to Councilwoman Dixon. Sarah, Personnel, Public Relations, and Historical Archives.
Yes, okay. We need to consider the promotion of a full-time lieutenant for immediate police department. The civil service rules and examination, there's one person who has, is eligible.
Is your microphone on, Sarah?
Oh, I forgot. Thank
There we
you.
go.
I'm just so used to people hearing me. Got such a big voice. Okay, shall I start over? No, thank you. So the council is scheduled to be interviewing Sergeant Egan on September 15th at 6:30 p.m. And depending on the interview, we may, I'll say that again, we may be wanting or voting on this agenda item during the legislative session. Just letting you know. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to apologize because it's 30 minutes before the meeting, so it would actually be 7 p.m., not 6:30 p.m. And I apologize for putting that incorrectly in the notes.
In 2 weeks.
So instead of 6:30, it's 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Because the legislative session starts at 7:30. Okay, did we make that correction? Thank you. And do I need to get any other? Oh, thank you. And also, last time we did accept the resignation of our part-time commercial property inspector for the code department. And now we need to put someone in that spot. And therefore we need to advertise for that position. And that people know that we have a position open.
Are we permitted to give a thumbs up for that? I mean, I think we all know we're looking for some. Should we put an ad now versus 2 weeks from now? I don't,
I think that's an administrative matter that can be done without a council vote.
that's what I thought.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, you can't hire without the council vote, but advertising is non-committal.
Okay, good. And so one other thing, do I need any, thank you. One other thing for publicity, or the very fact that last Wednesday, a week ago, for Dining Under the Stars, we had our native son here, Bill Whitaker, and his birthday was the next day. And so the family was out, and we had some people from Media Fellowship House there, and it was just a fun evening altogether. As a matter of fact, the weather even got calmer and not so hot. But we helped Bill celebrate his 70th birthday.
Wow.
He was looking good, nice and trim.
Great guy.
Hope you got a cupcake out of that at least.
I'm sorry?
I said, I hope you got a cupcake out of that at least.
Yeah. At any event, it turned out to be a really nice evening, and he took pictures with some of the police people who were very happy to do that, and the mayor and what have you. So, and Sue did a good article the next, in the New York Times. So things are still very positive on our side of the,
On the PR side,
yeah. Okay, that's everything.
Thank you, Sarah. Anybody have any questions or comments for Sarah? I'd like to pick up this thread that I think, Paul, you introduced this, maybe it was last month. Maybe it's with personnel, that's the best place to discuss an appropriate way of commemorating Ralph DeRosa's and Jeff Smith's service. Something that we talked about last week, and as it turns out, this past week, there was an event here at the Borough where both Jeff Smith and Ralph DeRosa were present, and it was great to see them, but it certainly reminded me that we've got some unfinished business there. So,
if you want personnel, I mean, I was thinking of, there's several people, several officers. I mean, we just had an officer retired that was one of the nicest, most pleasant individuals the borough has. Let's just, this is workshop, so let's think about maybe the December, a little bit more of a festive time, invite them all back in. And recognize them all, at least with something, and then
Before the end of the
right,
year.
and then maybe we can do something afterwards.
Yeah.
We can-
Karen, did you wish to add something?
You guys had previously mentioned this, so I did send an invite to Jeff, Ralph, Lieutenant Johnson, and Brad Cumberland, and invited them to the October meeting. All have accepted except for Brad, but I can add Officer Nolan if you want to.
I guess we're doing it in October.
All right, Karen, you're on it.
Okay, so I guess my question is, what do you want to honor them with?
A gift certificate?
Well, the traditional offering has been a plaque.
Right.
I'm not so sure that 30 years, 20 years of service,
48.
48, I'm not so sure that plaque is what it is that you use to commemorate that level of service.
Or, often there's the gold watch,
Bass Pro
right?
Shop.
Or something.
Well, if we want to do a monetary thing, I know two of them are big into hunting. One is very big into golf. And I'm not sure about one of the other ones, but maybe if that's the road, then, I don't want to discuss it here tonight, but, maybe we can come up with some sort of a gift certificate or something like that. I agree, a plaque is a plaque, but what else does one give? And they may, enjoy that. It may be something they do want to hang up in their den or something like that, so.
But there's nothing wrong with getting both,
Correct. So, why don't we do a plaque, and then we can talk about a monetary amount for individuals.
That's
Cool.
an excellent suggestion. If anybody else has any suggestions, Karen, would you mind being the point person for suggestions on this? So if anybody else has an excellent suggestion, like Paul and Sarah just had, then send them along to Karen, and if we can put them together in kind of a list, and then decide among the list what we think
All right,
is
cool.
most appropriate. But otherwise, it's the third Thursday in October, correct?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Dave is probably over there, but driving me crazy because I don't have my mouth up against the microphone. All right, well, that's the only comment that I had for Sarah's report. Anybody else have any comments or questions concerning Sarah's report? We'll move along to public comment and privilege of the floor. Karen, has anybody since the start of this meeting contacted you either by email or by voicemail with a comment or question for council?
No.
Thank you. Anybody present here tonight who wishes to address council, please come forward, state your name, your address, what's on your mind.
5-second rule.
We appear to have no takers, so
Motion to adjourn.
entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Good night, folks. See you in 2 weeks.